Hi, I'm M.
And my name is Bea.
And this is
Fangirls Anonymous. A quick warning, this podcast is not for kids.
We get into some pretty explicit stuff.
But if you're still with us and into that, welcome. Hello! It is I, Bea, and unfortunately, you will not hear M. But I have here today with me. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Ace. I've been on before, and I'm
Yay!
back.
We are so excited to have you back.
Hi.
Yeah, it is great to have you back. I'm really sorry for you and for all of you lovely listeners that M is not here, so I'm going to try and be more enthusiastic for you guys. We'll see how this works out. So, we have a great episode. Ace, I think you are going to probably take the lead a little bit on this one, but I have lots of questions for you, so don't worry.
Okay.
But before we get into that, a little bit of podcast homework real quick for all y'all. First off, as ever, we have a Patreon. It is there for you to admire from afar if that is what you want to do with it, or to maybe pitch a little bit of money towards if that's what you'd like. We love you, listeners, either way. Also, this is a little bit newer, but if you listen to this podcast and you thought, hey, this is pretty snazzy, could you please say so in a comment on Apple Podcast? It really helps us out. Let's see. I know I'm going through this pretty fast. This is what you get for leaving me alone, M, wherever you are. But I would also like to remind all of you, because the deadline is getting closer and closer, we are still doing Fic Club, and it is the last Fic Club of the season. The fic this time is Lotus Eaters by Eldora89. It is a lovely spurk fic. Lots of high adventure, lots of drama. Something that, if you like sci-fi, please go give it a shot. Please send us your questions, your thoughts, your comments, why you loved it, why you hated it. Whatever your thoughts are, we'd love to hear about it. Now, onwards. This week we are going to be talking about the Daredevil fandom. Well, I'm not going to be, because this is not my show. But, Ace, you are going to tell me about the Daredevil fandom, of which I know nothing, or very little.
I'm going to be primarily focusing on the Marvel TV show, which I believe is from 2015. I'll touch a little bit on the comics. I mean, his origin story, actually, they kept it fairly close in the TV show. So there's some, there's comic book craziness that happens, but the bare bones of it is pretty similar. And that's the one that I think that most people in general are more familiar with, is the Marvel show, because it was so big on Netflix, and it's been, looks like it's going to be kind of, incorporated into the Marvel movie universe as well now.
Crazy.
So that's exciting. Yeah.
So what is this show? This mythical show that I, who live under a rock, know nothing about.
So Daredevil is the story of his real name. He's a superhero. His real name is Matthew Michael Murdock, because the comic book writers love their alliteration.
At least Peter Parker got a Benjamin in there to break it up.
Yeah, break it up. Matt's got MMM. I mean, it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
And Matt Murdock he lives in Hell's Kitchen, which is a neighborhood borough of New York City, in the U.S. And so he is a vigilante. So he's not, from what I understand, what separates a superhero, say like Captain America, from a vigilante like Spider-Man or Daredevil, is that they are not backed by any governmental agency. They're not supported by them, and often they are hunted, generally by the police.
Wow.
So they're often going against the police, or running from the police or something, which
that doesn't seem fair at all.
Yeah, it's kind of okay, so those guys are cool, but I'm not.
The government said, we like you, but not you. Okay, all right. I see how it is.
Yeah. And what makes Matt interesting is that he has a secret identity like most superheroes do, but by day he is a lawyer, and by night he is a vigilante, and he is canonically and physically, I don't know if that makes sense, he is blind.
Huh.
so he has these superpowers that basically allow him to compensate for his lack of vision. And so he's able to do things like beat up ninjas
Wow.
and henchmen.
I don't
stuff.
think I could beat up ninjas sighted, so, you know, much respect.
No, I would die. Yeah. And so in the TV show, he is played by Charlie Cox, who, frankly, I think does a brilliant job. And I'll talk more a little bit about like his portrayal a little later. But so the TV show focuses on, it's 3 seasons, and it was canceled, but it looks like we might be getting a 4th season on Disney Plus. So we'll see where they go from there. If they, you know, they might be, people aren't sure whether they're going to be revamping it, whether they're going to be continuing the storyline that they left off of in season 3. They did kind of wrap it up in a satisfying way. So if anyone listening to this hasn't seen it and is interested in it, you're not going to be left hanging by a horrible cliffhanger at the end of season 3. So yeah, there's some closure there. Yes, too many pushing daisies.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, I mean, I am more aware, obviously, of the greater Marvel universe, and like Spider-Man got revamped 3 times in the last 10 years, 12, 15 years. I don't know. So the idea of them taking something that was well received, like I understand Daredevil to be, and then going, no, that was great, but we're doing something completely different now, seems really weird.
Yeah, it does. But luckily, they're at least keeping Charlie Cox as Matt, and it seems like they're also keeping the villain's actor. The main villain is Kingpin, who is also from the comics, and he may be familiar to some listeners who have, if you haven't seen Daredevil, if you've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Kingpin, Wilson Fisk also shows up in that one, and it's kind of interesting because as we talked about before, you know, Spider-Man is also a vigilante along with Daredevil, and oftentimes from the comics and then also in shows and movies, and they're often linked like that, and they will have either the same or similar villains, like Kingpin. Kingpin is a villain for both Spider-Man and Daredevil. Which makes for some interesting fanfic. There's a lot of crossover there, which is really
that sounds fun because Spider-Man villains can be wacky, and I'm trying to imagine like a blind guy just like beating up Doc Ock. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it kind of is. And if you, okay, the movie's been out for like 6 months now, but if you haven't seen Spider-Man Far From Home, is that the right one? Or No Way Home. I'm sorry, I get the mixed
I have
up.
to go through all of them to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home, the third one. If you haven't seen that one and you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening now, skip ahead like 15 seconds or whatever. But Daredevil does show up in that one, and not as Daredevil as Matt Murdock, but it's Charlie Cox, and he is playing Matt Murdock, the lawyer. And there's a scene where he catches a brick that flies through the window, and you know, everyone around him, Peter and May and Happy, are all shocked by it. So he's clearly, you know, he's got his powers. So they have introduced him into the MCU through that scene, which I'm very excited about, frankly, because I know people have a lot of issues with the MCU, but I'm happy to see him back as that character in a way that says we're probably going to be seeing him again. I don't think that they would do that and then not utilize his character anymore.
If they did,
so,
that would be
that excites me.
Heartbreaking. Like, here's the character that you liked. This is the last time you're ever going to see them. Like, what? No.
Yeah, just a complete psych out. Like, nope.
Fingers crossed then. Hopefully he continues to do an excellent job being Daredevil. So he's a blind lawyer vigilante who beats up Kingpin. So I'm already sold on this concept. What are some of the things that you were like, oh, this is what really drew me to this thing, that you suddenly were going like, oh, this is fanfic worthy and I want to read and know about this guy?
So what I really like about him is that in the show especially, again, I haven't really read a lot of the comics, but the show, especially what they do with him, is they make him vulnerable in a way that you don't often see. And I think what helps is that the Marvel TV shows used to be, before Disney Plus and before they really dug into them, they used to kind of be their own entity, where they hinted at things that were in the movies. Like in one of the very first episodes of season 1, Foggy, who is Matt's partner, they run their own law firm, Nelson and Murdoch, and it's Foggy Nelson. His
I
real
was
name
about
is
to be
Franklin, but he goes
really
by
excited
Foggy.
by this canonically gay couple.
Well, okay. Put a pin in that because a lot of people ship it, and so do I.
Excitement returns.
So, yeah. But so Foggy, they're looking for office space for their law firm, and they mentioned something about how they're getting a discount on their building because they had to rebuild it after I believe it was something along the lines of like a hammer smashed through the building or something like that, or aliens. And so basically they make a veiled reference to the Chitauri attack that happened during the 2012 Avengers movie. So they're kind of like tongue-in-cheek saying that this is the real universe or the same universe, but they hadn't really tied it together explicitly like that until the Spider-Man movie last year. So, but yeah, so what I really love about Matt in this show and about Daredevil as a whole is that you get vulnerability, not just from Matt, from other characters too, but like he's allowed to cry, and he's allowed to feel really strong emotions, and he's allowed to act on them, and he doesn't have to be the strong silent man the way that other Marvel things like say Captain America, there's a lot in Cap's life that I think that he validly, would kind of break down about, and he's never allowed to do that in the movies, but they do kind of let Matt feel things, which I really
It's funny. That was exactly where my mind went was, I feel like Civil War could have been avoided if they just all had themselves a nice group cry. Everybody would be better off.
Yeah. Absolutely. That would solve so many things. Yeah, and he's very interesting, and I think that Charlie Cox really plays him really well with it. He's vulnerable, but he is also very tough and he gets scary, it's a very nuanced performance, and I think that really, really aided in how popular the show was, and I think still is.
Punching ninjas and crying. Could we have wanted out of a superhero TV show?
Yeah.
Which I guess begs the question then, you may or may not know this, because as somebody who likes superhero media in all its various forms, I understand that they're wildly different, but do you know anything about whether or not that's like comics canonical, or is this show kind of marching to the beat of its own drummer?
I do know that his origin story tends to be the same across all of the iterations, at least the bare bones of it. So bare bones, Matt, he was not born blind. What happened was that when he was a child, I think in the TV show he's like 9. Okay. I'm not sure if that's the same in the comics, but so when he was a child, he saved an old man from being hit by a truck. So he dove to push the old man out of the way of the truck, and the truck was, for some reason, carrying radioactive chemicals.
In New York.
And in New York, yeah, in the middle of, a busy street.
I don't like any of that.
Yeah, and evidently fairly unsecured, because in the crash, the chemicals fall off the truck and splash into Matt's face, basically. And they simultaneously blind him, but also give him superpowers, pretty much. They're extra senses, they enhance his other senses to the absolute max. So he's able to hear conversations a whole block away, or he can hear in the show. It's interesting because they make it, it's this cacophony, and they kind of overpower everything else that's happening until it's you just hear this blinding wall of noise, and it's kind of that's what Matt hears. And it's kind of feel bad for him because he's probably gonna.
I was does he just walk around with headphones on at all times? Earplugs, maybe?
I would if I was him. Yeah, but so he calls it a radar sense. In the show, I think they describe it as a world on fire, because basically they tried to visually show it as he kind of uses almost like a bat, I guess, where he's able to he makes an image for himself. I guess he's picturing it because he was sighted until he was 9 or 10. And so he has memories of vision. Cool. And so he is able to kind of use like the way that sound waves bounce back to him to kind of paint a picture in his head of what his surroundings look like, at least the bare bones of it. Like, you probably can't tell detail, but he can see like shapes.
So maybe kind of like,
and I guess in his head
so
it's
kind of like
red.
Toph, maybe, where if it's a physical
Yeah.
object, she can see it, but if you hand her something with writing on it, she's like, it's a piece of paper.
Yes, and that is something that is really important. And there's some fic that does it really well, and other ones that I would say maybe not so well. Is that Matt's senses make up for a lot in terms of his missing sight, but it does not make up for everything. He uses Braille. You know, he reads using Braille, and he uses audio, descriptors. Like in the show, he's got, with his laptop, he's got a little, it's like an auto reader, so it'll like basically translate documents into Braille, like a refresher thing that he can feel. So, it doesn't make up for everything. He is still blind, but it is kind of fascinating to see how they do it, because the actor Charlie Cox is not blind in real life, but he does an amazing job, and he convinces you that he is. I've seen some interviews with him that he's talked about that it kind of, it would kind of weird out his other actors until they got used to it, because he doesn't look at people. He'll stare like at a particular point, but he doesn't look at people when they're talking to him, because why would he? If he was really blind. And I don't know, I just think he's very convincing. And I remember seeing something about that there was an organization that like gave him an award or something for like his representation of blind people on TV, which I thought was cool. Like he did his research, basically.
Yeah, good on him. It's nice to have something that, I guess, prone to error and not get blasted with a whole bunch of, no, it was terrible and how could they, but like, no, actually they did a good job this time. It's so nice to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is. And sorry for his origin story. He was blinded and was given those special skills by the chemicals that hit him. And then in most all of the media, he is the son of a man named Jack Murdoch, who is a boxer, and he's a single father, so he raises Matt on his own. And Jack is not, he's not the best boxer in the world, and he gets tangled up in like it's not gang activity, but it's like gangsters,
organized crime.
They want him to throw a fight. Yes, thank you. Yeah, organized crime. And they want him to throw a fight, basically. They've made bets against him, and they say, you're gonna purposefully lose this fight. And Jack decides not to because he wants Matt to be proud of him.
Aww.
But as a result, he is killed.
Not so good. Not
and so now
I
Matt
retract
is an
my
orphan.
aw.
Yeah.
This is like the opposite of Uncle Ben's death. Like, Uncle Ben was generally trying to do the right thing, wrong place, wrong time. This was a guy who was absolutely in the wrong place of sort of his own making, and it still went badly. And he was trying to do the right thing. I don't know. No wonder him and Spider-Man get along so well.
Yeah, they've got a lot of similar trauma there. Yeah, and then so now Matt is an orphan, and at least in the TV show, and I'm fairly sure it's the same in the comics, but I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. He is raised in an orphanage. As a result of living in the orphanage, Matt is actually raised Catholic, and so a big part of the TV show is him kind of reckoning with his faith and figuring out how he can reconcile being religious with his vigilante lifestyle and hurting people. And one of the points in the show that I think it's a little hypocritical, frankly, but one of the points in the show is that he's like, oh, I never kill people. Even though he beats them within an inch of their life, and sometimes he does things that it's like, they're probably going to die from that, but he doesn't make the killing blow, so he doesn't kill people.
Yeah, that's both a very thin line and a very slippery slope right there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
in the comics, in the 1993 run specifically, which is, I think, the one that is the most popular that most people know about and the one that directly influenced the TV show the most. That changes somewhat because Matt actually goes after the gangsters who were involved in the death of his father, and evidently he kills at least a couple of them. It just
not great of him.
Yeah. I mean, you want revenge, but yikes. So I guess they changed that somewhat.
Yeah, I have very firm morals until it comes to the death of my relatives, and then all bets are off.
There's another character who interacts with Matt who's kind of his mentor, and his name is Stick. So he's also blind, and he's also like a ninja. I don't think that he has special senses the way that Matt does necessarily, but he's basically trained himself to be very perceptive and to be able to fight even while blind. And so this may be starting to sound familiar to you if you are a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if any listeners are listening to this and going, this origin sounds familiar, there's, you've got chemicals that fall off of the back of a truck.
Okay. All right. I don't know anything about Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I don't know how we got from point A to point B. Tell me. Continue.
Yeah. Okay. So there's chemicals that fall off the back of a truck. They leak out, and they, give whoever they touch, they mutate them. They give them superpowers. And then those affected persons are taught how to hone their skills by a wise old mentor with a funny name. So evidently, this is exactly what happens to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The chemicals literally fall off the back of a truck, hit a fishbowl with 4 baby turtles in it. It falls into the sewer, and then they mutate, and they turn into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they're found by a rat named Splinter.
No!
And Splinter turns them out. He teaches them how to be ninjas.
Why does he know how to be a ninja? Who taught the rat to be a ninja?
That's a very good question, and I'm sure the people who are more familiar with TMNT would know, but but this was not a coincidence. The creators of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were directly referencing and kind of parodying Daredevil with the Turtles.
Does Daredevil ever meet them? Did they bond?
I don't know, but I hope so. I hope so. Oh my god. This was first brought up to me through a Tumblr post that hopefully we can link to in the show notes, but it was... So the first part of the post says, if I was Matt Murdock and I found out the same chemical spill that blinded me and lit the world on fire turned a bunch of turtles into pizza-loving ninjas, I would lose it, actually.
Yeah, that's a level of crazy above anybody's pay grade.
And the bad, evil ninjas that Matt and Stick fight are called the Hand, and this is the same in the TV show as well. They bring out the Hand. And apparently in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they're called the Foot.
That's so terrible.
I love it so much.
Are they all part of the same organization? Is there a left eye or a pinky finger? It's just a kneecap. Is there a kneecap organization?
I know. Kneecap is a good name for an organization. For an evil one. Oh god, you know what that reminds me of? Did you ever watch The Fairly Odd Parents when you were younger? There was a villain in the comic book, the Crimson Chin. There was the bronze kneecap.
Maybe that they also are part of this universe. Maybe it's all connected.
Maybe. I mean, Crimson Chin looks a lot like Matt.
I feel like we're beginning to understand it now, that there is some, at least theoretically, whole human made of other smaller organizations with silly names.
Oh god.
And it spans all known media.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's his origin.
Okay then.
Yeah.
So you said he was a lawyer, right? So is he a media stereotype of a lawyer? He's not a great guy during the day, but then he's a superhero at night? How does that work?
In the TV show, anyway, he really does his best to be a good lawyer. He actually, like, so he and his law partner, Foggy, met. So there have been debates about this, and people kind of tweak it in fanfic because it doesn't actually make sense. But so according to the TV show, they met at Columbia Law School. But what they show us, and the thing is that law school in the US anyway, is generally like a graduate program. Like you'll do your bachelor's degree, which is the first 4 years of school. You'll get that degree, and then you'll go and do a graduate program. So you're not, 18. You're generally like 22, 23. And in the TV show, they show us them meeting for the first time in the dorms.
Okay.
And they're saying that they're in law school, but Foggy is talking about having to take like a language class, like a gen ed class, which that's generally not something that you do in graduate school. And you generally don't live in the dorms.
Yeah, because in grad school you have picked your course and you're going to be doing things related to whatever your chosen degree is, rather than...
Yeah, and oftentimes you're a working adult and you're, working around that, or you're living off campus. Usually graduate students, at least in the US, do not live on campus in dorms. Maybe they can.
Yeah, I guess
but
they
usually not.
Could.
Yeah. So people have theorized that maybe they met in undergrad and then just went to law school together after that, or whatever, because they kind of messed up the timeline there a little. But either way, they met at school, whether it was undergrad or law school, and both Foggy and Matt became interns at, and this is in the TV show anyway, became interns at this big corporate law firm. And it was, Foggy was okay with, just kind of making some money and just kind of doing stuff on the side. But Matt has a very strong sense of justice and a very strong moral compass, although sometimes it swings wildly in different directions and it doesn't quite make sense to anyone else. Yeah. But he is very driven by his morals, even if they are a little bit skewed. But part of his morals was he did not want to work for a massive corporation that did not put people first. They showed in the TV series, they showed an example of, that he and Foggy were interning on a case that was very clearly like very messed up. I think it was like a healthcare case where it was someone was suffering and they were not going to help him get, the compensation that he deserved. And so Matt was like, I don't want to do this. I want to start my own firm and I want to represent the little guy. And Foggy basically was like, okay, fine, and went along with it. And so they left their internships and started their own practice, which is very sweet. And so, especially in season 1, because season 2, it all kind of starts to go downhill because Matt doesn't make the best choices. I mean,
this is a man who decided that he's apparently going to pull double duty, where he's going to be a lawyer, which is a massively time-consuming profession by day, and also one that it sounds like, decided to do on hard mode, and then he's like, and also I'm going to punch people at night and escape the law. Okay. You don't sleep then. Yeah.
Matt in decision making, not best friends. But yeah, so at least season 1, you see them really working to help the little guy. They're the main client that we see them working with is a woman named Elena Cardenas, who is being threatened. Basically, she's in a rent control department, and they're trying to get her out of there and get her neighbors out of there so that they can tear the apartments down and build like condos or, new modern places that they can charge 3 times the price for. Yeah. It's a pretty typical thing, unfortunately. And so Matt and Foggy are trying to help her. And that's how they get embroiled in the storyline with the main villain, who is the Kingpin, because he is ultimately pulling all of these strings. He has a control over like the apartment builders, or the owners of the apartment complexes and the construction firm and all of everything. He's got his fingers in all of the pies. And so that's kind of how it boils out, is that Matt is trying to figure out how to win their cases and how to help people in his day job by using his night job, by using his Daredevil persona to get to the bottom of what is going on and who is controlling everything. So it is kind of fascinating to see how it intertwines. And that is something that really drives the show, is kind of the mystery behind it of how is this going to work out? How, because every single time they think that they've got something, they hit another roadblock. And it is pretty fascinating because Matt is trying to protect his identity too. You know, no one can know that that mild-mannered lawyer Matt Murdock is Daredevil. So there's a lot of mystery there. Mild-mannered is putting it a little bit lightly, but
interesting. So, Foggy, you have brought him up a couple of times now, and I want to know more about the man who would follow his best friend into, I guess, his own business and do it without the moral drive. Like, who is this Foggy person?
So Foggy, honestly, I love Foggy a lot. He is played by Eldon Henson in the TV show, who people might know him. I think he was in the Mighty Ducks when he was younger. As far as I know, Daredevil is the biggest thing he's done since then. So Foggy is he's very upbeat. He's very friendly. He's kind of sarcastic, but he's got a very, very big heart, and he really loves to help people. Once you kind of convince him, like he kind of play like, I don't know. I genuinely really like Foggy, and at least, you know, he kind of plays like he wants, you know, the money and stuff, but he is often very easily swayed by Matt's moralistic arguments.
I think I see where the possibility of the ship might be coming in here.
Because you kind of have, you know, this, if you want to break it down into its bare bones, you kind of got like a happy sunshine person and a gloomy kind of, you know, everything is awful person, and it's a really good juxtaposition.
The grumpy one loves the sunshine one.
Yes, exactly. And it's not that Foggy can't get mad, and actually that's really what I love about Eldon's performance. I talked about Charlie Cox and how great he was before, but genuinely everyone on this show really is amazing. They all really, really make you believe it, and the chemistry between the whole cast is incredible, and I think that is also another thing that has driven the popularity of the show. But he just genuinely, like, he's another one that they allow him. He's the comedic foil oftentimes. With Matt, he's more, you know, easygoing, laid back, but they allow him to get angry. They allow him to be hurt because Matt makes stupid decisions. Matt will make you scream at your television sometimes with what he does. I have screamed about, what are you doing, you idiot? Because he makes really freaking dumb decisions, and they let Foggy get mad at him for it. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a really good scene in, I want to say it's episode 9, but I could be very wrong there. Where basically they show us all of their backstory of how they met in law school, and it's because Foggy has just found out Matt's secret.
So Matt didn't tell him he was Daredevil. He was not in on that part of it.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Nope. And Foggy found out in a very bad, as in Matt almost died, and Foggy had to try to save him way. Good. And it was not good. Yeah, not good. But they do it so beautifully, and that's the thing. They keep pulling you in. They keep making you root for these people. And Matt makes stupid freaking decisions, but you still root for him. And it's this really good mix, I think. And I think that the way that these characters interact really helps with that.
All jokes aside, it's so rare to find a TV show that lets its characters step outside of kind of the trope boxes they get put in and be something different. Like, Batman is probably never going to cry on screen. That's just, they're never going to really let him do that. Or if they do, it's for this one dramatic singular tear moment, and then they move on. And
yes,
other characters just, they're happy sunshine all the time, and you're like, that's great, but you know, that's not deep. So it's nice to have characters who get to be more than one thing. And it sounds like they did a really good mix of kind of making them foils to each other, where you're like, okay, we want them to be interacting in these unique ways because it makes the other character that they're bouncing off of really pop too. So I don't, that's my writer speech coming out. So
no, I think you're totally right, and it's very satisfying. I like it a lot.
don't know what else there is to talk about the show, because unless there are other ships, are there other ships that you think are worth talking about? I mean, I'm definitely seeing this one.
Yeah.
So what else is going on?
Yeah, I do definitely ship Matt Foggy, but as I think I said in my other interview, I tend to be a multi-shipper. Like, I basically am like, if my favorite character or characters are happy, then generally I'm going to read the fic. I want them to be happy, and not that I don't like, Wump and stuff like that, but I'm not one to be like, I ship only this and I will never ever read any other fic with any other ship. And so there are quite a few that are very popular. So Matt and Foggy, they have a woman who they help her with her court case in season 1. Her name is Karen Page. She is played by Deborah Ann Wall. She's also very good. They're all good. But so they help Karen win her court case, and they end up hiring her as basically like an assistant / secretary person in the law firm. And so and she is one who is also from the characters. She's kind of like Matt's on and off again girlfriend in the comics. And so in the TV show, they do kind of play into that. They show that they've got like crushes on each other, and they go on a date, and they do kiss. But then all of Matt's drama kind of catches up to him, and they kind of like break up basically in the show.
I'm sensing,
but it is kind of ambiguous.
I'm sensing that might be his MO. Is things happen and he doesn't tell anybody until the drama catches up. Yeah,
Matt has a very, very strong sense of, I need to keep everything bottled up inside until I explode.
It seems to be working out great for him.
Yeah. In the show, he does actually have moments where he talks to Father Lantom, who is the priest at the Catholic church that he goes to, and he has confession with him. And so that's an interesting way that they also explore his character, and he's able to talk to him about like God and about the devil, and he kind of, Father Lantom is kind of, he doesn't quite know about Matt, but he does. He's guessed it. He's a smart guy, so Matt makes very thinly veiled references. So that that's an interesting relationship there. But yeah, so Matt and Karen, they do kind of briefly date on the show. They break up, but sometimes people will ship them, and I think that's good. They all have pretty good chemistry with each other, so it makes sense. There's another character named Claire, who is played by Rosario Dawson. She is a nurse who finds Matt as Daredevil, who's hurt in a dumpster, which is a trope that people like to use.
That's a real meet cute material right there. You're in a dumpster. Let me just help you, friend.
And I can definitely see the appeal of that one, because she's a nurse, she's a very naturally caring person, and she's cool. She's like very no nonsense. I do like her a lot. And, Matt is often hurt and kind of has that, there's the scene where Foggy calls him a handsome wounded duck. And people love to drop that one out, which, he is. So you've got the handsome wounded duck and the hot nurse, as Foggy calls Claire at one point. So, people like shipping them. Again, very good. There's a character who comes in season 2. This is the Punisher, who is another comic book character, and he has his own TV show, but he's introduced in Daredevil. And sometimes people will ship them.
Interesting.
I haven't read a lot of that one, but again, I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't really read a lot. But what I read primarily is Matt Foggy, and so most of my recs will actually be Matt Foggy. Not all of them, but
awesome.
Most. It really works to me. But, if people don't ship it, I'm not going to be mad.
Awesome.
It's kind of, one of those fandom things of people will ship anyone with anyone, really, in the long run. But those are the main ones.
I find my experience with the greater Marvel fandom has been that it's with in reason, decently forgiving in that aspect. I think it's because there's just so many characters that
So
people
many.
are like, you know what? If you even know who half of these characters are, then you're good. Like, you can ship them in any order you want. You actually know who they are. It's fine. So you definitely talked about some fics that you might be wrecking. So what might those be? Please lead me deeper. I need reading material.
Yeah. So there's a few authors out there who have written a vast amount of fic, and a couple of these are like mostly from them. But what probably my favorite Daredevil author, and I think it's mostly specifically Matt Foggy. There are a few that are not Matt Foggy, but most of their fics are. Is their username is poisonivory, and the first one is by them. It's When Your Arms Are Too Weary. So this is like quite a few AUs out of the gate. So it's arranged marriage,
Okay.
angels and demons, wing fic, which sounds
Yeah.
wild. I know, but so what I love about Poison Ivory's fic is that they really, really, really know, all the fics in general, really, is they really know how to write Matt and Foggy. Their characterization, I think, is really, really good, and like just their voices. You know, when you read a character and you can just hear those characters like speaking in your head, and you know, oh yes, this is, you know, this is how they would act. That to me is the mark of a really good fic. Yeah, so there's not a lot of tags on it, but it's literally just alternate universe, angels and demons, arranged marriage, wing fic, college fic. So it's a bunch of combos of different things, but it's genuinely good. So it's this alternate universe where some people, not everyone, but some people are basically angels and some people are demons, and they're kind of like there to keep the balance in the world. And no one really knows about them. For most people, they're just generally like baseline human, like our universe type thing. And there's just like one of each, like one angel and one demon for like each generation of people.
Okay.
Basically. And part of this like contract is that those two people have to get married.
Awkward.
Yeah. And they kind of don't know about either one until it's like, hey, you're 18. By the way, you're an angel and you've got to marry this demon guy or girl. And they're like, okay. So in this fic, Foggy is the angel and Matt is the demon. And I know this sounds wild. This sounds like a crazy freaking fic, but it's honestly amazing because it's really, really well thought out. Like, they're not, you know, what I love is that they're still themselves. Matt is still, frankly, you know, he makes ridiculous, stupid decisions. He's angsty. He's angry. He's still Catholic, which is something that he explicitly struggles with in this fic, just about like, you know, how his faith intersects with who he is and what he believes about demons from the Catholic faith, which I am Catholic, so you know I know that it's not the best not the best view on demons.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just there's something about there's really, really good there's angst, there's hurt comfort, there's the awkwardness of they're kind of forced to cohabitate, so they, you know, they, because of that, this is a college fic also because they're like 18, so they're they are legal adults, you know, but they're living in the dorms together, so they're cohabitating that way, so they're fulfilling basically, you know, the terms of their contract through that. And like Matt is convinced that Foggy hates him, and Foggy does not hate him. But Matt is like, well, I'm a demon, of course he's gonna hate me, he's an angel, like why would he like me, you know, I'm a cursed, horrible person and I'm going straight to hell. Which is usually something that Matt thinks anyway, but the demon thing just amplifies it.
I'm sensing some self-esteem issues here.
Yeah, and Foggy's just like, no, you're cool. Like, what? Foggy's just his kind of genial, like, this is wild, but we'll work through it together type person. And I don't know, it's very good. And I tend to very much like fantasy elements to things and kind of mystical, mythology type things. And this kind of really does hit all of those boxes. So if you are in any way, interested in that, I would definitely read this one. I think it's really good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it deals with, it even deals with like ableism and stuff, because that's something that this author I think does really well. Is they, in a couple different fics, they kind of discuss how it's like, yeah, Matt has these powers, but it doesn't mean that he's able to just compensate for everything. And oftentimes he does bump into, especially college, like he'll bump into like professors who, like, I think in this one it's like, they refuse to properly scan their documents so that Matt's e-reader can read it to him. And so Foggy has to read them out loud to him, and Matt is trying to get the professor to understand that this isn't cool, and the professor just kind of brushes him off and basically implies that like he's not going to be able to handle law school and he should just quit.
Yeah.
Which is not great. And Foggy defends him, and it's beautiful.
That sounds awesome. I was going to put it on my reading list anyway, and now just for that scene, I'm 100% going to read it.
Mm-hmm. This author in general, I think, has just amazing fic, and I could probably, give you 20 recs, but I will I will just leave it to that one, awesome. I think. Yeah, and then let's see. Another one. So I was curious, and I looked up the top fic with the most amount of kudos just for the Daredevil TV fandom. So this isn't Matt Foggy. And I know, there's different ways of seeing the most popular fics on AO3. It's like kudos. It's, by hits, by bookmarks, however you want to do it. But just by kudos, it's the fic called A Different Kind of Mask by Aloneintherain, who also has some very good, lots of good Marvel fics that I believe I've read most of their Spider-Man stuff. So yeah, this one is actually, it's a Spider-Man and Daredevil fic. So just like, how we kind of talked about before, how they kind of play off of each other really well. It's very entertaining. It's a one shot. It's real small, and but it's fun because it's basically, it's Matt and Peter were out vigilanteing together. And in order to be, to avoid capture by the cops, they have to basically play up the, oh, I'm a teenager, I'm sad and scared and alone, and oh, I'm just a helpless blind man. And they have to act basically in front of the cops and just put on the water. Well, Peter puts on the waterworks and like to avoid getting arrested, and because they're wearing their uniforms underneath their like clothes.
Nerve-wracking.
And they're all like beat up. Yeah. And it's very entertaining.
That sounds hilarious.
And I can see why it's the top kudos fic. Yeah, it's real good. I really like fics where people write Matt and Peter having a good relationship and working together. I just think it makes a lot of sense, especially when Matt like takes Peter under his wing, like as a mentor. I think that it's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'll admit I've seen more, at least in the movieverse, Tony Stark, Peter Parker stuff, but I am always shopping around for more strong father figures in fiction. So
yes, I do also very much like Tony Stark ones as well. Those are very good. But oftentimes, like, these are either Peter doesn't have that great of a relationship with Tony, or it's after, Endgame.
Yeah.
And it's like an AU of that, so. And then the next one is actually a coffee shop AU, which is really fun.
I don't know that we've ever wrecked a coffee shop AU before, so this might be a first.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're so, like, I think probably every fandom has at least one coffee shop AU. So this one is really good. I like it a lot. It is Matt Foggy. It's Daredevils Don't Drink Decaf.
That sounds...
Which I love because it reminds me of those, like,
the Bailey
kids'
School
books.
Kids books. Like
yes,
genies don't teach school or something. That's...
yeah. I love
to the author who wrote that, thank you so much for that blast from the past.
Yes, oh, it's so good. This one is by ChuckleVoodoos.
Thank you, ChuckleVoodoos.
Yeah, but I want to read you the summary because I like this a lot. So basically, the premise is that Foggy went to law school. Matt never did, so they never met. So Matt has been basically raised by Stick and the Chaste, which is Stick's like organization that goes against the hand. So Matt is a very sheltered, like, sad little ninja. And he never met Foggy and never like came out of his shell and like learn to socialize with
Even
people.
worse
And then Foggy is
socialization.
like running.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, not that he's great at it at first, but and then Foggy is running his parents' coffee shop like during his basically break between college and finding a job. So, but the summary is this is a quote. I really, really want to make a joke about bats and blindness. Will you punch me if I make a joke about bats and blindness? Matt shakes his head, grinning. Okay, so we are super spud and blind as a Batman. In which Foggy uses his law degree to peddle coffee to unsuspecting caffeine junkies, and Matt is his favorite customer, who may or may not be Batman. And I love it a lot. It's so good. It's another one shot. It's not super long. I tend to read a lot of one shots. About 20,000 words. So it's good. You know, it's a good amount. And it's genuinely like very charming, and you know they grow to really like each other, and Matt's got this, you know, super secret identity, and it's I like it a lot. It's good. And Foggy is like a genuinely, I think, would be an amazing barista, so it totally makes sense for him.
all of the pieces were already there, and it just became realized. It's a thing of beauty.
It really did. And then the last one, actually, sorry, I had two more. There's another one. This one's also by ChuckleVoodoos. It's called Rowan and Red Oak. It's another one shot. It is 22,000 words, so they, you know, about the same. But so this one it's an AU. It's Wizards. So it's technically a Harry Potter AU, but it really doesn't deal with a lot of Harry Potter stuff like at all. It's really just, it mentions some of the randomly kind of weird American magic system things that J.K. Rowling came up with.
Name drops and then ignores the mess.
Basically, it doesn't mention Harry, it doesn't mention Voldemort, it doesn't, you know, it really is just kind of like, it's basically saying that like, this is the same magical society and muggle or, you know, nomad or whatever society as that. Like, that's what we were dealing with here. But other than that, it, like, you know, if you don't like Harry Potter, I think you're fine with this.
Perfect.
Like, yeah, and so it's very cute because, like, so they're wizards, obviously, and like Foggy has like wildly unpredictable magic, and it really likes Matt. So like, it's very cute. Like it says like, here, I'll this is the summary. Foggy meets a man with a red oak wand and a sweet smile. Over the next 8 years, Foggy makes a lot of coffee, reads a lot of tea leaves, breaks a lot of rules, and casts a lot of charms. He also spends a good amount of his time pining over his perfect partner and trying to keep his wild outbursts of emotional magic to a minimum.
I'm imagining.
So like whenever Foggy's like really happy,
I'm just imagining Matt, things happening around Matt, and because I guess I'm assuming he's still blind in this since it's so integral to his character that to a certain extent he knows what's going on, but to a certain extent sometimes things just happen, and he's just like, I don't know, that's part of being Red Foggy. It just happens sometimes.
Yeah. It's very cute. Like there's a little part where like, you know, Foggy's magic knows how Matt likes his coffee, and so it'll like make coffee for him, and it like never goes cold. Like they've put it in the freezer and got out 3 days later, and it's still nice and hot, and like it's the perfect coffee for Matt. And it's just, I don't know, it's just very, very sweet. It's like subconsciously Foggy is trying to take care of Matt, and it just kind of makes it go like, oh, it's so cute.
His magic went, you know what? If you're not going to step up.
Yeah. Is anyone taking care of this person? No? Okay, I guess I will. So this last fic, it's by poisonivory. They have so many amazing ones, really. I if you like these fics, if you like Daredevil, just like go to poisonivory's list and just like go down the list and read them because they're really, really good. But this is another one shot. It's just under 10,000 words. And so this one, so in the TV show after season 2, Matt and Foggy have a fallout, and so they're not speaking to each other, and they I'm really trying not to spoil stuff, but it's not good. Basically, they're not, you know, they're not seeing each other anymore. They're not, well, you know, like as partners, they're not speaking to each other. But so basically in this one, it's called Just to Listen to Your Breath. by Poison Ivory, and it's Foggy's POV, and basically he keeps hearing someone out on his fire escape at night. And at first he kind of freaks out, and then he realizes it's Matt as Daredevil. And so Matt as Daredevil is basically kind of coming and checking on Foggy and making sure he's okay, even when they're not speaking in their like real lives, I guess. And they eventually talk things out, and it's really well done. It's another one that's just I as if anyone has read my fic, you probably know I am very much in support of these characters just need to sit down and have a conversation about how they feel and how they're going to fix things and how things affect them and everything. And I do that often, and that's kind of what happens here. And I love it, because sometimes you just want to force these people into a room together, lock the door, and say you're not coming out until you make up.
I have had that emotion many times.
Yeah. And that's kind of what this fic does. And I love it. And it's very sweet. It's like, there's angst, there's fluff, there's hurt comfort. So if you have watched the show, and especially if you're like, say on season 2 and you're really angry with how things are going, maybe take a breather, come and read this fic, and you'll feel a little bit better about the world.
Yes. I love that about fic, that it comes in and says, all of those things that made you angry, watch as we make them disappear. Yes, exactly. I love it. It's too good. And there's so many good Daredevil fics out there. There's so many. Most of the ones that I wrecked are Matt Foggy, and I probably should have found more that were not. But those are generally the ones that I bookmark because I ship it. But if you don't, that's cool. There's so many amazing fics and so many authors that are doing amazing things. And I really, if you're at all interested in this character, I would say just dive in and see if you can read what you want. You don't even necessarily have to watch the TV show, frankly. Because
I think if you know his backstory, you'll probably be able to muddle
him
through.
and the Mutant Ninja Turtles all have a boy band together. Yes.
Yep. I really hope there's a fic out there of them meeting. I'm gonna go looking for that now, and I will tell you if
thank
there
you.
is.
We will put a link in our show notes if you find one. If there's more than one, though, you have to pick the best one so that our listeners will have only the very highest quality, really weird crossover.
Oh god. Oh man, it's so good.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for coming and talking about Daredevil. I am super excited to read the fic you have wrecked. I have learned so much because, like I said, I know the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the comics okay, but this was definitely new to me. So again, it is always wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's so fun.
All right. Well, since I think we all have something wonderful to read, or if that was not to your taste, please go read the Fic for Our Fic Club, which is again Lotus Eaters by Eldora89. I think we're done. So we'll see y'all next week on Fangirls Anonymous. Bye!